Hello everyone, welcome to the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. I hope you're having a good day. Just me today. I'm going to take you through some Sky Sports fantasy football content going into Gameweek 10. Just taking you through the fixtures, who I think is the best captaincy each day, potential transfers, players to bring in, some stats, and then some of your Twitter questions as well. And of course, the all-important Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast Mini League update. See who is currently winning the biscuits. Okay, first up, I wanted to have a quick look through the fixtures for Game Week 10. Looking at Saturday's games, we've got Newcastle against Brentford, Man City, Southampton, Chelsea, Wolves, Bournemouth, Leicester, and Brighton v Tottenham. You'll see, and it's pretty obvious, there's pretty much only one captain on this day at the moment, and that's Erling Haaland. I think he's pretty much undroppable for Pep. I don't think we'll see any rotation risk from him. And I think in terms of Sky Fantasy Football, he's got almost double the points of any other player. He is doing that well. So I think you just have to captain him on that day. Other players I think are noteworthy to maybe look at bringing in is Wesley Fofana on this day. I think should he start this game, which you'll be able to see because there is no early kickoff on Saturday this week, you'll obviously be able to see if he plays. And I think given that he started at the weekend just gone, I think there's a reasonable chance that he'll play. But I also think if he plays in this game v Wolves, it sort of shows how Potter favours him within the squad. And it's against Wolves. They've just sacked their manager. They've got a real problem with scoring goals. So I think if there is a game for Chelsea to keep a clean sheet in, it's against Wolves. And at a minimum, I would expect Fofana or any of those centre-backs to get passing bonus. So I think that's definitely one player I'd look to bring in. Another one, it depends on whether you think Saturday the 8th is a hop-on point. But there are in Game Week 11, there are two potential game days where you could captain a Brighton player. Personally, I really like the look of Trossard. I think he's going to be a great pick for next week. And you could bring him in against Tottenham if you fancy him. Tottenham haven't looked amazing defensively this season. They've kept a few clean sheets. But I do think that someone of the quality of Trossard could score against them. So yeah, I'd recommend him as a transfer. I'd also people that have Kamara, we know he's out for a few months. I'd also take a look at McAllister as well. He obviously covers you for the Brighton captaincies, and he's one of the top performing players in terms of bonus points this year. Obviously, he got a bit of goal threat from set pieces. I'm pretty sure he's on pens for Brighton. So he's definitely not the worst shout in the world if you're looking to replace Kamara. But for me, I think the strongest is Trossard. Based off the last two games he's had, he looks to be absolutely on fire at the moment. So moving on to Sunday the 9th, we've got West Ham at Fulham, Palace and Leeds, Arsenal against Liverpool and Everton against Man United. It's a tough one, this. I think the best captain on the day is an Arsenal or a Liverpool player. And personally, in one of my teams, I didn't move on to Maddison from Jesus. I brought in Harvey Barnes back along for the Leicester and Man United single. So I didn't have Maddison, which obviously has left me with a few less points. But I think Sunday is a day where you could genuinely get away with captaining Gabriel Jesus. Just looking at that Liverpool defence, obviously Liverpool attacking-wise are pretty much just as good as they always have been. But defensively, they look pretty awful at the moment. And I really do fancy Arsenal, especially at home, with Liverpool being away, of course. I really do expect Arsenal to score some goals this game. And every time I've watched him, not only just watched him, his stats back it up as well. Jesus has been really, really dangerous. I just expect him to give Liverpool some problems. Same with Martinelli, actually, up against Trent. I don't want to single out Trent for any particular reason. He's coming under a lot of scrutiny at the moment anyway, but he just doesn't seem to be defending very well at all. and there are no real other options in that position for Liverpool. So I just fancy Arsenal to do well in that game. And I think if I were to pick one captain for that day, I'd probably edge for Jesus. Obviously, Salah, excellent choice in any fixture, really, and you'd back him against Arsenal. Virgil van Dijk in the Liverpool defence, I'm not too sure I'd captain them. I still don't think I'd sell Van Dijk if I owned him up to this point, though. I think he's consistently still scoring points, but obviously they're not keeping clean sheets, which doesn't suggest that he's a good captain. And then as for Monday the 10th, we've got Forest and Villa. Yeah, bit of an interesting one this. I've got Dean Henderson, so I don't think I'll be making a transfer for this game. I'll hold on to Dean and captain him for this game. But for those not on Henderson, there isn't really a standout keeper at the moment. I'm not going to lie. I don't think there is a best keeper. Obviously, Ederson, just based on it's Man City, they're great defensively, is probably the best. But ultimately, I don't think there's a standout. So I think this is the day that you could go on to Martinez, for example. I think he's a keeper that consistently gets saves bonus. Villa have a really nice run up until the World Cup. So if you don't already own a player for this game, I think it's one you could bring Martinez in for. I'm just going to have a quick look on my phone at Ollie Watkins' price as well, because Forest don't look great at all defensively. And I feel like it's a game that Ollie Watkins could do quite well in. I'm just going to have a quick look at his price. Okay, so Watkins is 9 million. Yeah, I quite like that as a shout as well. But I think my best captain on that day is probably Martinez. But yeah, I think if I didn't own a player, would I just skip it? Like Forest and Villa sounds pretty trashy, doesn't it? I probably would, to be honest, if I didn't actually own a player. But if I wanted to get off the goalkeeper that I was currently on, I think Martinez is a good shout. But yeah, probably it's a skip if I didn't own anyone, I think. But I've just named a couple of options there if you really couldn't resist skipping. And next up, what I wanted to show was just the rankings of players in terms of bonus points scored this season. Tyler Adams is number one. He's been pretty outstanding in terms of his passing and tackle numbers this season. I actually brought him in this weekend for Kamara. I was umming and ahhing about whether I should do McAllister or Tyler Adams. I went for Tyler Adams in the end just because I thought he was a pretty safe pick for bonus, and that I also fancy Trossard for the single. Well, not single because one of them's a double game day, but the times that I captained Trossard, I think I prefer that over McAllister. So I went with Adams, and he blanked for Villa. Now, obviously, Sinisterra got sent off, which I think really dramatically impacted the way that Leeds played, which probably obviously had an impact on Adams' bonus points. So I'd back him to return to his form. He sort of reminds me of, if you remember when Højbjerg first signed for Spurs, if you played Sky for a few years, I think he was about 7.4, 7.5 million when he joined Spurs. Similar price to what Tyler Adams is now. He just played at the base of midfield and just got passing or tackle bonus every game. And he proved to be, I don't think everyone owned him, but he proved to be one of the best assets in Sky that year. And Tyler Adams gives me that sort of vibe. Obviously, I think the Villa game was a bit of an anomaly where they only had 10 players. So yeah, I think he's one to keep an eye on. I mean, you'll see Haaland on top of pretty much all the scoring charts. He's got 19 shots bonus, and I'm pretty sure he's done that in 9 games, which says that he's got shot bonus at least every game that he's played. I mean, the guy is just incredible. I think if you don't own him, what are you doing? You need to have Erling Haaland and captain him every game. But yeah, he's pretty much had shots bonus every game that he's played. And he's only not scored in one game, and that was Bournemouth away when City still won 4-0. So yeah, the guy just looks incredible. And similar to Van Dijk as well. Like I said, they've not really been clean sheet material, Liverpool. I'm sure that they will. eventually get back to somewhat their old ways. But obviously they conceded 3 against Brighton, and Van Dijk didn't get passing bonus. But interesting that the Brighton defenders did. So one to keep an eye on there, because I'd expect Brighton defenders to sort of move their way up this list as the season goes on. Just thinking if there are any sort of surprises in here, really. I don't think there are any real surprises. I just did a filter on players that have played at least, I think, 4 or 5 games as well, just so we can sort of pick the more nailed players. But I don't think there are any real surprises on this list. In terms of outstanding keepers, actually, one that I do quite fancy is Jordan Pickford. He's been getting consistent saves bonus, and I think in terms of like XG conceded numbers, can't remember if Everton are top of the league at the moment or very close to being top. They're looking really quite solid defensively, which is not something you usually expect to say about Everton. And Pickford certainly isn't a player that I would traditionally pick in Sky, but he doesn't look like too bad a shout. And then obviously McAllister there, who's a captaincy shout as well for Brighton in the upcoming weeks. But yeah, just thought I'd put this on screen just so you get an idea. And before I forget as well, I'm in no way behind the creation of this metric. It's all on the FF Stuff website. I'm pretty sure anyone that watches this pod already religiously goes on there and checks the match centre every Saturday to see how many passes their players have made. But if you haven't already, you've got to go on FF Stuff. Frank does an excellent job. Every day that there's a Sky game, he has a live match centre which keeps count of players' passes, tackles and shots bonus, so you can keep track of how they're doing for bonus points in Sky. And he's also got a range of metrics such as this. The next one, which is player total points. It's not exactly a groundbreaking metric, this one, but other ones that he does have are really, really useful to look at. And when you're actually in the Sky game, you can't just select a list of all the players in the game by points. You have to go for each position. So it's just quite nice to have a clear and concise picture of players' points regardless of their position. But yeah, moving on to this metric, it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? Like I was saying, Haaland is top, and by absolutely miles as well. He's got almost double the points of any player in Sky at the moment, and he just doesn't look like stopping. I certainly don't remember a season in my life where a player seems to be this dominant. I think it goes without saying that you need to have him in your team, really, and he's almost essential to captain whenever Man City play. Just other players of note. Now, I'm trying not to get too tainted by just the game of the weekend, but I think Phil Foden looks pretty nailed in that City team, and I really don't mind him as an option going forward. Obviously, they blank the week they're supposed to play Arsenal in Gameweek 12. But after that, City have a really nice run, and I wouldn't hate like an absolute Man City block in your team for that period, just because I think they'll really kick on. And I think Arsenal are still top of the league, right? So I think City need, between now and the World Cup, they really need to step it up in the Prem. They need to start keeping clean sheets and just blowing teams away. And I think with their run up until the World Cup, post the blank, they'll be on that sort of roll. And I'm certainly eyeing up a Man City sort of defensive block for that period. Just because I think they'll do really well. I don't think there are any, well, obviously it's players' total points, right? So I don't think there are any real surprises on this list. We all know pretty much who are the highest scoring players in the game. I think probably the most interesting one is to say that the top scoring goalkeeper is currently... It is Sarr, isn't it, on that list? Just making sure Ederson isn't in there, because I've got a gut feeling that Ederson's pretty high. But it is Jose Sarr by the looks of it. Given that Wolves have actually, I know they just sacked their manager, but they've been pretty good defensively this year. So in terms of keepers, he's the best at the moment, apparently. But yeah, like I was saying, I think picking your goalkeeper up until the World Cup is one of the most difficult decisions at the moment. And I wouldn't hate the next few game weeks switching out your keepers for captaincies, because I think there are a few options to do that. But I don't think there's an outstanding keeper at the moment that everyone should be rushing to. That's for sure. Okay, few Twitter questions to go through. Starting off with Tommy Smith. He asks, who do you think the best goalkeeper replacement for Henderson is? He's looking to move on after the Villa game, got 0.7 million left in the bank. Yeah, mate, like I was saying, I really don't think there is a standout. Obviously, Jose Sarr's got the most points. I think if you've got 0.7 in the bank, what does that leave you? I think you've got 7.2 there to spend on a keeper. Let's just have a quick look. So yeah, Henderson's 6.5, so he's got 7.2 to spend on a goalkeeper. So yeah, top of that list obviously is Sarr, as we just saw on the points earlier. Nick Pope's in second. His fixtures up until the World Cup are Brentford, Man United, Everton, Tottenham, Villa, Southampton, Chelsea. So a bit of a mixed run. Whereas Martinez has got Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Fulham, Brentford, Newcastle, Man United and Brighton. So that's not too bad a run. I'd actually suggest that Wolves isn't too bad either. They've got Chelsea, Forest, Palace, Leicester, Brentford, Brighton, Arsenal. Yeah, I really don't know on the keepers, to be honest. I think there are most of the keepers below 7 million that play regularly are perfectly decent. I would say probably... Can I say it? I think my two favourites are probably Martinez and Pickford. I think those are the two that I'd be looking at. Just because Everton seem to be doing pretty well defensively. And Pickford is obviously usually picks up at least saves bonus, and he's pretty good at saving penalties too. Man United, Tottenham up next, so you wouldn't expect 2 clean sheets. But yeah, you'd expect some saves bonus and maybe penalty save in there. I think the two best are probably Martinez and Pickford. But based on the fact I've said Martinez, it sounds really weird to do this, doesn't it? But if you think Martinez is the best keeper, I'd swap Henderson for Martinez on the single game day. It sounds really weird to make a transfer when you already own a player on the day, but if you believe Martinez is the best, then make that move. But yeah, I really don't think there's nothing screaming out to me at the moment that suggests the best goalkeeper in the game. I don't think there is one. Michael Harlan says he's got Rodri. He was going to move on to Evans last night, but thought it was a luxury. Would you take Rodri out for Fana if he's still injured on Saturday? I think it depends. I think Rodri is one of the best players in Sky. I'm not really the sort that has owned him. I just don't ever seem to have him in my team, but he always pops up every season, pretty much 200 points, which is exactly what you'd expect for the price. And I'm pretty sure Pep said that Rodri's back in training now, and Walker's the one that appears to be injured. So I think Rodri will be back for Saturday. And even if he wasn't, I think he'll only be out another week. So I'm not sure I would make that move personally. The only reason I would do it is if you need the funds. Excuse me. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd say I'd make the move if I needed the funds, but I would back Rodri to do really well this season. He's a 200 point a season player based on passes, tackles, and occasional attacking threat. You just know that's the case with Rodri. And towards the start of the season, I was a little bit worried about the competition that Calvin Phillips would bring him. But with the shoulder injury that Calvin's got, I'm pretty sure he's had shoulder surgery and he'll be out until probably after the World Cup. So I think Rodri's got a clear run and will play pretty much every game that he's fit for. So I'm just not sure I'd take him out. Okay, so FPL Spartans. He's tempted by a 3-for-1 on Man City players. Is it the best use of transfers considering you'll probably want more Man City assets for the 4 fixtures after the Liverpool game? I think it depends how many City players you have. In fact, Michael, based on what you said there, I'm going to look at the fixtures because it might well change my answer to Michael's question. Yeah, so if you do, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it, actually, Rodri to Fofana. Rodri to Fofana could potentially be a 3-for-1. So you take out Rodri, well, you could, it's a difficult one, isn't it? You could take him out on the Saturday. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong week. No, Rodri to Fofana isn't a 3-for-1 this week. So Rodri will have Southampton. Fofana's got Wolves. You'd probably expect Fofana to outscore him on that game week. So it's probably worthwhile making the move. City then have got Liverpool. Chelsea got Villa. You'd probably back Fofana over Rodri if he played. And then Fofana plays 2 fixtures to Rodri's 1. But he does have United compared to Brighton for... It's a tough one. Yeah, I'm not sure on the Rodri to Fofana move. And I think based on the fact that I'm not sure, probably suggests that I wouldn't make it. Because if you look at fixture gains, it's like a 4-for-3. It just doesn't seem like a worthwhile gain. I suppose I'd only really make the move if I needed the budget. And the thing is, with like I said with Rodri, is you can guarantee, as long as he's fit, he's going to play. Whereas Fofana, Chelsea have got too many options, in my opinion, for him to play every game. So if you look at that run up until game week 13, those 5 games, you'd expect him to miss 1 or 2 of those, I think. So yeah, sorry, this isn't answering your question, Spartan, but Michael, I think I would hold Rodri. Just quickly back to those questions. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be taking the City players out because I think it's only 1 game missed. I just realised I put a little icon over Everton and Leeds fixtures there, but I'm not talking about them, so it's okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd take those City players out because up until the World Cup, like I said, they got Brighton, Leicester, Fulham, Brentford. It's almost a chance for me to bring in some City players because that's a run of 4 fixtures that you'd almost expect 4 clean sheets in. Certainly like the likes of, Diaz, maybe the new fullback they have. I've forgotten his name now. But he could potentially be a shout for those games if Walker is injured. And obviously it depends on the extent of the Walker injury because I think he looked like it was a muscular one, which could leave him out for a few weeks. I keep forgetting the guy's name. Sergio Gomez, that's it. He's only 7.6 million. So it'd just be interesting to see if he gets in the team. I guess Ake can obviously play left back as well, and Stones can play right back. But yeah, Stones is obviously injured. Ake, he played centre back against United, so Sergio Gomez could be an interesting option for those games if you want a little punt. 7.6 million, Man City defender. If he plays 3 of those 4 games, he's probably worth the money. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be taking out City players with the blank. I think I would just leave them in. Mitch says, needs a Kamara replacement. 7.5 in the bank. Can be any position. I think the 2 for me, mate, are Fofana and Tyler Adams. Based on everything I've said so far. I think Tyler Adams is probably more nailed to start. Well, definitely more nailed to start than Fofana. There's far less competition for his position. I think he's been playing really well, whereas Fofana's got a bit more competition. And I wouldn't say he's lit the world up this season, Fofana. I completely respect he's an excellent player and a real prospect, but I don't think he's pulled up trees yet. So, yeah, I'd go for Tyler Adams, I think, just because the security of his starts, and I think he will get bonus almost as consistently as Fofana does. And he's got the option of getting passing and tackles as well. So he's a double bonus potential player. So In Your Dream says, thoughts on what to do with Reece James? He's already got Cancelo and Saliba in 3 at the back. I think if you own Reece James in Sky and you're on 3 at the back, it's probably a hold. The only thing I would say is you could also consider just a straight swap to Fofana and free up the cash. But again, about Fofana's like chance of starting. I think Reece James is one of the most nailed players in that Chelsea team. I think as long as he is fit, he will play. Whereas Fofana, he's got a chance of being benched. So you could just downgrade him to Fofana, keep your 3 at the back, and then get in a player in Fofana that will get you bonus points for substantially cheaper. But I don't know, I just doubt that that's an ideal move, really. Unless you need the budget elsewhere and can see a really easy move elsewhere, I think I just hold him. One of this probably brings on to a bit of a wider point. I've got a fan team logo up here. Hang on, we'll change that on the fly. There you go. One of the things that I've really learned this season about Sky is, and yeah, I suppose I can say it was a learning, is the importance of patience. Like where you're like really thinking about making a move and it's 50-50 whether you should. The right thing probably to do is be patient, sit on your hands and not make the transfer. Because I think if you're 50-50 about making a move and not sure, having the transfer in the bank is probably better. Yeah, just my thoughts. And I think one of the key learnings that I've made this season as well, where I was in a position like that Leicester Man United single game day, I was umming and ahhing about bringing a player in, and my mind should have gone back to the old adage of if you're in doubt, do nothing. And I think that's one of the 10 commandments of Sky or what have you. Someone should write like some 5 key commandments of Sky or whatever. But I think one of them is definitely, if in doubt, just do nothing. Don't make a transfer. You'll probably thank yourself later on in the season for not doing that. Okay, one more thing to go through before I wrap it up was our Golden Goal Mini League. We've seen some pretty big moves in this one, likes of Tim Barry, Danny White, with 2 teams by the looks of it. Well done, Danny. I think he must have had Maddison as captain for that Leicester game, and quite a few of the lads that were in the top 10 last week probably didn't. But yeah, I'll just run through, give everyone a shout out. And first we've got Ewan. I'm pretty sure he was in first place last week. He replied to a tweet of mine actually when I tweeted out the mini league in just after the weekend finished. I'm pretty sure he says he's used something like 13 transfers, which to be honest is probably a bit more than the average. But yeah, Ewan Sky FF top with 13 used. A little bit more than the average, but he's got the points on the board. He's 60 points ahead of second place. So yeah, well done, Ewan. In second, we've got Sean Rawlings. Third, Tim Barry with a 26th place rise. Sounds like you had a fantastic game week, Tim, so well done you. Martin in fourth, Mitchell in fifth, Danny with his 2 teams in 6th and 7th. Daniel Burton in 8th and 9th. A couple of guys with 2 teams right up there. And then Zach Padmore in 10th. So well done to everyone in the top 10. Keep it up, Ewan, and some biscuits and a mug might be coming your way. And I think that wraps us up quite nicely. Hopefully we'll have Sam back on next week. He's been really busy with work these past couple of weeks, so we've just found it really difficult to find a time to record together. But hopefully you didn't get too bored of me there rambling on. But yeah, if you enjoyed what you saw, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you next week with some more Sky content. See you later.